Colton, let the dog in. Colton, let the dog in. Colton, let the dog in, please. Colton, I'm going to throw away your iPad. Let the dog in. All right.
Hello. All right, good. I'm going to start this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome everyone, and if Brian, when you get, well, you finished, I want, if you could do the microphone, thank you, for audience introduction.
Mary Ann Hutchinson, Rumford Falls Times.
Lorna Hutchinson, Carthage.
Christine Roach, a Peru resident, parent, and RSU56 employee.
Gretchen Curtis, DES PE teacher.
Cindy Petherbridge, DES librarian.
Pamela Ringel, I have 2 kids in school and 2 not in school yet.
Heidi Connolly, Director of Special Services.
I don't usually dress like this. We had a spirit day today. Jason Long, curriculum coordinator for the district principal at the middle school.
Earl Couture, math interventionist at the middle school and Dixfield taxpayer.
Julie Couture, Dixfield resident, 2nd grade teacher, DES. Bethany Meehan Poulin, Dixfield taxpayer and parent.
Kristen Arsenault, library tech, and the only reason I don't look like Jason right now is because I had time to go home and change.
Karina Lee, Carthage resident and library director of the Ludden Memorial Library.
Thank you very much. We have adjustments to the agenda. Could I get a motion? And a second? I'm gonna do a roll call.
Dawn,
Yes.
Larry, Kathleen,
Yes.
Joy, Tina,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
Consideration of the minutes of the November 28th, 2023 board meeting. Could I have a motion, please?
I have a question about that, about the minutes.
Oh, okay, comments or question? Go
Yes,
ahead.
okay. You want to go to do the motion first?
Well, I usually do the motion the second, then I ask comments or questions.
I make a motion.
All
yes.
right, thank you. And the second? Okay, comments and questions, Larry.
Under new business, section 2, where it says, after much discussion, it was suggested and decided that librarians come in and speak to the board on how they vet in library books. I would like to have added to it, one second here, because it wasn't not mentioned in the minutes. I want to have that I was the one that put the motion in to table, have the librarians there, and I would like my comment, the entire comment for the record, to be reflected in the minutes, and I will send an electronic copy to Pam and Kathy, so
Kathy.
it gets put in there as part of the records of the minutes.
Okay. You'll send that to them. All right. Any other comments, corrections, revisions? Seeing none, roll call.
Dawn,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Kathleen,
We're approving the minutes. Yes.
Joy, Tina, Tina,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
Okay, the public comment. This is the time the public can make a comment. You are respectful. You may have a question. We may not have that question for you. It would be getting back to you. So come up and state your name.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, fellow citizens, faculty, and guests, I am Earl Couture, math interventionist at Dirigo Middle School, Dirigo taxpayer and concerned American. Most of you know me, and my political and social leanings are not hidden. I consider myself a strict constitutionalist, constructionist, believing in limited government and individual freedom. I'm an unashamed Christian, and yes, I have read the Bible. I sat here earlier this year and watched and supported the movement to remove a book from our high school library. It is my personal opinion that the visually pornographic nature of the book was too much and needed to be removed. I can no longer stay seated nor silent. I did not spend 24 years defending our Constitution and our God-given freedoms as a member of the United States Army to stand idly by while my school board speaks ideological propaganda reminiscent of 1933 Germany. All the following types of literature were to be banned. Literature with liberal and democratic tendencies and attitudes, writings on sexuality and sexual education that serve the egocentric pleasure of the individual, pornography and explicit literature, and books that advocate art which is decadent, godless, or purely constructivist. These are many of the types of literature that were banned and or burned on the order of Joseph Goebbels, chief propagandist for the Nazi Party. Ladies and gentlemen, there needs to be room for all types of literature, beliefs, and opinions in a constitutional republic that espouses itself on individual freedoms and liberty as their base value. I was disgusted by some of the board members' comments from the last board meeting, specifically singling out many types of Americans and their culture and literature as not being appropriate to be in our schools. I do agree that there are limits to what can and should be allowed in schools, but to blanket all of them together is illegal and, most importantly, immoral. Now, I do agree that all books within a library should be age appropriate for the grade levels that the library supports, but this new policy is too vague and subjective to personal interpretation. There are current policies on the books that allow individuals to petition the board to remove a singular book or a group of books from the library within the district, as we've demonstrated in the past. These policies should be sufficient. I believe there are school librarians who do a fantastic job sorting through the thousands of books published every year and should be commended on their diligent work and not condemned because someone disagrees ideologically with a book or books that they procured. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Earl. Anyone else?
Good evening, Julie Couture. Earl pretty much said everything that I would say, except for the fact that I know the librarian at DES and I know how hard she works to make sure the books that she chooses are appropriate for all ages and for all ideas at our school. And I think that the policy is too vague. And I think that we have hired these professionals to do a job that we need to let them do. So I'm here to support. I don't know the librarian at the middle school or the high school, but you guys approved her and hired her. So I would say that you have faith in her ability. And I know Cindy Patherbridge, and I know that she has the best interests of our children, and she is putting books in our library that meet their needs.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, I'm the mom of two students, one who graduated from Dirigo High School, one who is presently here. I have worked in the past with our amazing librarians. I would trust any book that they put into my child's hand. And heaven forbid there should be something I disagree with. We have existing policy to address that already. And when I looked at the policy that was proposed in the last meeting, it made my stomach feel a little sick at the reach of that. Being someone who has read the Bible cover to cover, though I don't recommend reading it straight through that way, it would be on a list to be taken out of our libraries based on the content and the nature. I actually looked up a few very spicy passages that I won't read because this is being recorded. So I think that we have to trust the professionals we put in charge of bringing books to our children. And if we do as parents question that, we have existing policy to take care of that. I would really like the board to move forward and look at other issues that affect our children all day, every day. We have rampant drug use in our communities. Kids need support. Their families are struggling. We have, I would argue, a lack of, what's the word I'm looking for? A lack of extra courses beyond the core of what we offer. We have other areas that we could be putting a lot of our emotional time into instead of swirling the drain on culture war stuff. So I would really, really, really appreciate the board moving on from this, using the existing policy that does work, and just getting back to the business of creating really awesome schools for our kids, because you've done that for a long time, and this has been a sad departure to watch this fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? Okay. Communications.
I have no new communications for the board.
Okay. Presentations. Kristen and Cindy, you're up. Is it gonna go up?
Good evening. We're all doing okay. It smells so much like popcorn in here that I had to buy a bag. So I have concessions. So our presentation today is about our library material selection policy. Go to the next slide. So our first section is just going to outline the selection policy as written and how we follow that. So our basic considerations, here's a direct quote from policy IJJ. Quote, a certified library media specialist will be responsible for overseeing the library media program under the supervision of the superintendent, which is how we operate. So some basic considerations that we make when we review individual titles is the accuracy and currency of material, the importance of the subject matter, its scholarship, the quality of writing and production, and the reputation and significance of the author, artist, or composer. So a little more on this, the library will provide, as per policy, quote, a wide range of materials on all level of difficulty with diversity of appeal and the presentation of different points of view. So these next few bullet points will sound familiar. I read them last meeting. I did abridge them. I'm not reading them all for you again today, but here are the ones that are most important. We follow the main system of learning results, varied interest, abilities, and maturity levels of students. We aim to foster respect and appreciation for diversity. We include comprehensive, accurate, and balanced representation to minorities and women. We balance opposing sides of controversial issues. We stimulate growth in factual knowledge, literary appreciation, aesthetics, and ethical standards. We focus on information that will enable students to make intelligent decisions in their daily lives. And finally, and perhaps most vitally, we respect the constraints of the school unit's budget. So some professional selection information as per policy. Before recommending materials for purchase, professional staff should evaluate the existing collection, consulting reputable, unbiased, professionally prepared selection aides and specialists from all departments and or all grade levels. So here's a list of the professional selection aides that we use. So that's book list provided by the American Library Association, which has been in publication since 1905. Kirkus Review, which has been in publication since 1933. Publishers Weekly, which has been publishing since 1872. School Library Journal, which is also an American Library Association publication, which has been publishing since 1954, and Common Sense Media, which has been publishing since 2003. Individual school needs and existing resources. So last piece of this policy here, meeting the needs of the individual schools based on the knowledge of curriculum and the existing collections of instructional and library media materials shall be the highest priority. So some additional resources that we use, we also collect curriculum supported materials ordered by RSU56. So at elementary school, we've been collecting Amplify books, which were purchased by the district. We consult Nawea Lexile scores, which are the reading levels for our student body. So we cross-reference that, make sure that we're buying books that are at the appropriate level for our students. We also take and vet recommendations from colleagues, parents, and students. We consult the digital main library database novelist, and we consult Library Media Connection, which is another resource, professional resource. Another list that we consult are the award lists that are given annually. So this is a large slide. I'm not going to do these one by one, but if you have questions about them later, we can come back here. So there's the first group, which are the medals that you see in the middle. Those are the American Library Association Youth Media Awards, which are given annually in January. So there's a long list. There are some that we only use at the elementary school because they only consult children's literature at the elementary level. And there's some that we only use at the high school because they only concern young adult literature for high school students. At the bottom, there are the Maine-based book awards. These are awards that are given by Maine students. So a group of books are nominated by a committee of professionals, usually also working school librarians and teachers. Anyone can actually submit a book for review to the committee. They select a curated list that then students read, and they themselves choose who wins. Our students love doing this. Every year we get a little excitement, students waiting to see who won the Chickadee, who won the Maine Student Book Award. Luckily last year, the winner of the North Star Young Adult Award was the book that our student voted for. So that was a great experience for her. So the bottom line is that every book considered, whether we see it on an awards list, whether a colleague tells us about it, whether a student tells us about it, whether we see it on the bestseller list, however we learn about a book, it is considered and evaluated individually for relevance to our students and according to policy as outlined in the presentation. So this second section here is oversight. So you do have oversight over our selection. which includes policy as written. So number one, the board does give parents the right to choose what their students do or do not read. So as per policy IJJ, the board recognizes that the final authority as to what materials an individual student will be exposed to rests with that student's parents or guardians. However, at no time will the wishes of one child's parents to restrict his or her learning or viewing of a particular item infringe on other parents' rights to permit their children to read or view the same material. So I do want to emphasize we have a policy as part of IJJ for challenging and removing books, which we did follow last year. The policy starts with having a conversation at the building level with administration or with myself. Then if you're unhappy with that, then you move on, you submit a formal complaint, and then we go from there. But if there has been no conversation at the building level and no formal challenge issued, then we are not aware of a problem. As far as we know, there's no problem. I want to also remind everyone that our catalogs are publicly available and searchable at any time by anyone on the district websites. I hope so.
Well, the last meeting, the middle school and high school wasn't working. It still doesn't work?
Interesting.
Okay.
It worked when we set it all up. That was the first I'd heard of them not working. I'm sorry about that. I usually provide direct links to students, so we hadn't noticed it. The link was broken from the district website because they have a direct link. So the last slide here is just a note on how students select their books. So per policy IJJ, our books in the library are provided for enrichment opportunities that expand students' interest and contribute to a desire for lifelong learning. So library materials are available for students as a supplement to their required reading, and they're not individually assigned. No single book in the library is required for a student to read. When they come down to the library, they are electing to read what they choose, and we support them in that. So a library staff member will never choose a book for a reader and put it in their hands and tell them they have to read this book. When a student comes down and they ask for a book, we give them multiple suggestions for their consideration. It's called Reader's Advisory. We learn about it in our master's degree. Even when a student comes down and says, pick a book for me, I've had Garrett, Natalie's son, very frustrated with me because he'll say, just pick a book for me. And I'll say, well, what do you want to read? Like, what are you interested in? Here are 3 books, you pick. And he's like, yeah. So I have never forced a book into a student's hand, and neither has Cindy.
I'm going to add just a few things. Kristen and I work together. We meet every week, Tuesday morning. It's supposed to be a half an hour, but we end up with 45 minutes, an hour, until I have to say, oh, my kids are coming. But when we order for the Maine Student Book Awards, for instance, there are 2 lists. They have since broken it down so that there's a 4 to 6 and a 5 to 8. And so when we are looking at those, we are making sure that we're not ordering, double ordering, so that we know who has what. We also talk about the content. We talk about where it's going to be appropriate. If I say, I am not going to order this one for 4 to 6 because I think the content is a little bit too much, she may order it for the middle school or even the high school. So we do have in-depth conversations every week about what's happening in our libraries, what we are ordering. The ordering process is very different between an elementary school and a middle school and a high school. There are different things to take into account. The first thing, the number 1 priority, is curriculum. We have to know the entire curriculum, what teachers need. I do this by usually sending out a survey at the end of the year. Usually, when do we do that? April, May, and ask teachers what they might be missing. What do you want in the library? What do you need in your classroom? And those are the priority on our book lists. After that, we look at the award winners. Well, after that actually is Chickadee and Maine Student Book Award, because those are our passions. And then we look at the award winners. Like, we always like to have the Caldecott. We always like to have the Newbery book. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, and using the new NUEA scores for the elementary school, that is huge. outside of the middle school and the high school. So when we can use our program where we are Alexandria and we can do an analysis of our whole collection. It'll tell us our Lexile level. It'll tell us how many nonfiction, fiction, and each delineation of the Dewey Decimal System, where we're trying to get to a certain percentage. So we've been working hard at weeding so that we have exemplary libraries with that.
So our last slide, it just says questions because we're open for questions now. If you want to change that for us, Jared, please.
Questions.
Oh, this is the wrong page.
All right.
Regardless of what it says on the screen, we are open for questions. Any clarifying questions?
Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, can we go back to the first slide, please? The first slide with actual data on it. This one. The one before that, I think.
It's slide 3. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna try not to make this long.
Okay.
I've heard folks who've spoken up at the podium the last meeting and this meeting talk about professional experience and training. In fact, I think we got to the point where we were talking that the staff had about 700 plus years experience.
That's just between the middle and high school. I got that because we did a video at the beginning of the year that was, this is my X number of years in education in general. So that's, if you're wondering where that number came from.
Well, no, I figured. I mean, you hear it in all kinds of industries. We talk about our collective experience, and we should look to professionals. And I think there's an impression here that board members don't respect the experience of our professionals, and I think there's times where maybe that impression is created. I think until you ask an individual board member, it's important not to assume that we all don't, even if we disagree on certain things. But I do have some questions specifically because I think we're having, somebody mentioned culture war. I think we're deep in a culture war that none of us are going to solve. It doesn't mean there shouldn't be concern. One question that I would come up with, and I came up with immediately here, is accuracy and currency of material. Who decides what's accurate?
Yeah, there are professional standards that we follow. It breaks down Dewey section by Dewey section. So materials like about technology, those require it to be very, very current. So usually within 2 years. If it's older than 2 years, then it is outdated. Things like history, it's much longer. So 15 years is generally when you start looking at, and that's more so not because the information is now inaccurate, it's because the writing is no longer appealing to the audience. So yeah, it depends on the subject matter.
Okay, that makes sense.
It also,
yes.
If there is a topic where there are different opinions, then we are supposed to be able to get a book that represents each, so that accuracy, they are learning to decide and make those decisions among themselves.
That's
with
a tough
guidance
one, right?
of the education.
Yeah. The scholarship or the quality of writing and production. When it comes to scholarship, and I'm going to use Gender Queer as an example, which is a book that was in this library. I would assume it was chosen by one of our librarians. I don't think it just showed up. I'm sure it was an intentional purchase. I'm not saying with intent specifically to twist anybody up, but we bought the book, and there is a vetting process that sounds like it. Yeah, I know you have trust in your staff, and I get that. When we're talking about scholarship, accuracy, and currency material, the importance of the subject matter, I want to refer to the website commonsensemedia.org, which references in what parents need to know. I'm going to read this directly, so be patient with me. It's not super long. But I think this is related to, like, why did we decide that book or any book like it should be in our library? And I will say, by the way, that it does say that the author said this is 18 plus, and that this site said it should be 16 plus. Parents need to know that Genderqueer, a memoir, is a comic-style illustrated account of the author's journey towards understanding non-conforming gender and sexuality. It is not marketed to the youth audience, which I assume is what YA means, but it received an award from the American Library Association, which is another source that you guys reference as a professional source, for being a special interest to teens. Author illustrator Maya Kobabe, I think I got her name right, uses E, EM, and EIR pronouns. Explicit but not erotic illustrations of sexual activity, including menstruation, oral sex, sex toys, kissing, and an implied sexual position, and a fantasy image inspired by Greek art showing a bearded man with an erection holding a boy's erect penis. The image is not next to a reference to Plato's Symposium. It's interesting. There are no violent acts, but there are a few bloody, nightmarish pictures showing fear and trauma surrounding menstruation and getting a pap smear. Strong language, including, it says, I think this is DICK, COCK, FUCK, and I don't know if this is SHIT or SLUT. That's the end of the description. So when we are deciding whether this book, which I realize is gone now, we went through the process, belonged in school, how did we determine the scholarship, the accuracy, the quality of the production, and whether it was appropriate for children? Because I think this is the argument I think most parents are concerned about. It's not the Bible. It is not Grapes of Wrath. It is not 1984. And the policy is very broad. It's not perfect from the start. Even Kathleen said it's not the gold standard. And I think you're going to hear more that it needs to be changed. But the argument really is about this. So what about what I just read, which came from one of those sources and also referenced another source? What about that made us decide that in your professional experience, it was appropriate to have in the high school?
Yeah, so I would say, well, that book is no longer in the school. The
Sure.
board had decided that it doesn't belong, and so it no longer is. When a book is challenged, then a packet is made up about a specific source that outlines exactly why that book was selected for the library, and it's given to the review committee and it's given to the sitting board if it becomes a board issue, if it's appealed to the board. So the board members who were sitting at the time received information about why that book was purchased. I'm not going to go into it again because I think we're going to get a little lost in the weeds of one book when today we're just discussing our policy as we apply it.
We're talking about how you select books.
Mhm.
So my question is, how did this book get selected? I realize it's gone, and there are others that probably need to go. If that description we found appropriate, how did you folks decide that that was appropriate? Applying these standards and others, what was that thought process like? I'm not looking to put an individual on the spot. I think that's irrelevant. The book was here. How did we do that? Because that is what we're talking about. We're not saying, well, the Bible includes everything that I just read here, because it doesn't.
No, I hear you.
1984 doesn't, Kill a Mockingbird, Grapes of Wrath, those don't have that.
Mhm.
So how is it decided?
Yeah, so again, the sitting board at the time received a packet of information about why that book was. Can you let me
I'm
finish,
going to
please?
interrupt you because I'm asking how it was decided.
I'm
not
going to
what the
answer
board
you if you let
decided.
me finish.
Okay,
She did explain it to us.
Mhm.
she did to this board? Yep.
Yes, we got the packet.
I'm
of it.
the city
I
board
do
right
not
now.
have- Yes, we did, because that was the one that was at the time.
Yes, the board that was at the time. We're talking about this current board and the issue at hand.
Well,
It's not really relevant to this current board because the book is not in the district.
I'm going to differ with that, because we're talking about how books are decided. We have a perfect example of a book that was removed. We have other books in the school like this. I don't understand why we can't talk about how it was decided to be appropriate.
we have a process. The process, obviously, nobody's perfect.
Sure, I understand
And
that.
a book was found.
Right.
The process worked, the book got removed. So right now, the issue is, are we going to take away, basically, which, that we're going to choose what books go in there?
Nobody wants that. Nobody
No,
wants to say the Bible's gone and all
I
that.
wouldn't know what to do.
I mean,
and I wouldn't-
the policy is broad, and it's first language. That's why we're going to have a second reading of the dress code, right? The issue at hand, which Larry requested, is how do we make this decision? And I'm asking, how did that decision get made? And at the end of it, feel like an appropriate decision was made. I don't think I'm going to get an answer, but why do we dance around it? Why can't we have a real life conversation where we talk about real life decision making? You want the respect of the community. Show us why that should be a thing, not just be on some board hired you years ago.
We don't talk about.
Sure, I'm not talking about an
No, but you're interrogating an employee's performance.
Oh, no.
I want to make sure, well, that's what it seems.
These are the decision makers.
Correct.
I don't even know their names individually. I don't even remember
But
what they are. So there's nobody I'm interrogating. Who do we ask the question of? Is this an executive session thing? What is this then?
Well,
Yeah,
We're
so
not
when
allowed
that
to
book was
ask.
challenged, it first went through a review committee who read the book in its entirety, read the supplementary material about why it was chosen.
Clearly, you're
and
not
the-
going to answer my question, so I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, we can move on.
I have a question when you have a minute.
all right, go ahead, Tina.
So, I understand what you're saying on how you go through and select, but I kind of have a follow-up question that has nothing to do with the genderqueer stuff. That book was removed, blah, 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 moving on. But some of the books that are still, you said might not be appropriate for one age level, but is purchased to put into another library. For example, this year, Houses of the Night series was found in the middle school. Great books, fantastic books, very sexually explicit. And I want to know who thought that would be great for my 12-year-old to read.
I'm not
Kristen,
sure what
I'm
you're
gonna let
referring to.
Jason come up and answer that.
Okay, because I'm trying to
Can
follow
you say
up.
the name of this book again? I didn't quite catch it.
Yeah, it's the House of the Night series. Like the whole series is in there, and or was. I'm not sure if it was removed or not. I'm just telling you that it was there, and it's not something that I would think would be age appropriate for, a sixth grader or a seventh grader, or maybe not even an eighth grader. So I guess, I understand where you're coming from, and I'm hearing that you're going from the professional list, but when we have a vetting system that it sounds like we do, where one book is, recommended for the 18 and up, which is now removed, but then we have another group of books that, I would not want my child reading until he's older. I'm not seeing in modern times when parents, let's just put it this way. Okay, the community members voted the people in to the school board because that's what they wanted. And I feel like a lot of the parents' wishes on what they think is okay for their kids, it isn't always being followed through. And I understand the process, but I think maybe we should look at it a little more closely. I think the current wording is not okay because, we can't be cutting out classic books and things that are obviously, not going to be an issue, but I do think that we should be looking at some of these books a little more closely. The high school library is still not up and running, and we did bring that up last week. Do we know how long that's going to take to bring up?
We'll talk with it and try and figure it out. I'm not sure what's going on with it.
Okay, the middle school
I
one
would
is
say as
up
far as
though.
books, specific books, if an issue, then they can bring it to the attention of the building and we can address it with that parent. And if they are unsatisfied, then they can submit a challenge report.
Okay.
Yep. So I'm not super familiar with every title, but I will tell you something that happened this year that may be what you're referring to. It may not, but I did have a kiddo heard about a book that that someone in their life, a parent, had read, and they wanted to take out the book, and they took out the book. And the parent gave the school a call and said, "You sure about this book? This is pretty racy stuff." And so I said, "All right, well, there's a policy." So I got my hands on the books. I had a conversation with my librarian. My librarian said, actually, that's kind of a pretty racy book. I didn't buy that book. And I had a conversation then with my superintendent. And at that point in time, we did not need to go through a full challenge process because everyone was on the same page right out of the gate. Another important part of that criteria, students had not been checking that book out. It was just sort of, it was there. So I came to the district 9 years ago. I'm sure there are still fiction books that I was not here when they were purchased. I'm sure there are books that have been purchased since I've been here that someone will have a problem with, but I have no problem following the policy as it exists. And that's what I was able to do in that case.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's a fair answer. I'm not, from my view, my personal view is I'm not attacking anyone for anything. And I do think that information should be available for students with all of their questions. I just think that maybe we need to be a little bit more careful on those more concerning books. Not that it shouldn't give them the information they need, because they absolutely should have access to that. But perhaps we should be vetting the ones that are a little bit more controversial. That's all. That's my personal thought on that.
Thank
That's
you,
all.
Tina.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll do Joy, then Larry.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just been on the school board since August, so a lot of this book thing is new to me. I agree a lot with Brad on what he said. I wonder, in your mind now, has all this conflict changed anything in your reasoning on going ahead in the future and choosing books? Has it made you feel like you might better know what you're going to get a conflict with, or are you going to follow through and, if you think that book should be in the library, it should be in the library?
I follow policy as written, as outlined by the presentation that I just gave. That hasn't changed because that is my direction per the board. I do monitor what's going on around the country, what books are being banned in different places, and I do take that into consideration when purchasing, but I follow policy as written.
Okay, because I've only been here since August, but I was surprised at a couple of books that they told me had been in there, because I thought that books were more on the curriculum of the classes that the school had and would need to go to the library to fulfill homework. And as well, I mean, we have a public library for a lot of outside fiction.
Yeah, and I often direct students to the public library.
Yeah.
If they have a question about a book that we don't carry, then I say visit the public library with parents.
Right. But I take offense a little at everybody attacking the school board.
Oh, I hope you don't feel that I've done that.
Well, there's been more than just you, okay? As far as comments made or whatever, because we're trying to do the best we can. If it's the policy, it's the policy. It's not personal. People here are trying to, shut down everybody's information, but sexually explicit stuff that just they can get online, they can get at the public library, maybe doesn't belong in the high school.
Yeah, I would say, I don't feel that the board, bringing up titles that would be removed that, Brad says he doesn't want removed. I don't believe that you want those books removed. I bring them up to point out that the policy as written would remove them, just to make clear this is what's written. I don't believe that you believe, or I don't believe that you would want those books to be removed.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead, Pam, and then
I just want to say that our technology director, Mr. Keene, just checked, and those links are all up and working on our websites.
Okay,
all our libraries.
Thank you. So, because I was going to give Brian the evil. Thank you. Larry.
Yeah, this whole discussion is centered around somebody cherry picking.
Yeah, use your mic. Otherwise, people online can't hear you.
It was on. Okay, there we go. Okay. This whole issue is just centered around the minority cherry picking a certain thing out of the rules, out of the policy. Where pornography is not allowed, people can't read it, they're not supposed to be in the school libraries. This whole thing has been centered around that one topic. We're attacking the librarians because they put pornography in the library. No, they don't. It's all a moot point. I highly suggest that all the board members read an email that was sent out to everybody from the ACLU. It's online. It's on the board email. As a staunch defender of the First Amendment in our state, the ACLU of Maine writes to convey our concern with RSU's 56 proposed materials policy. We urge you to keep students' constitutional rights in mind as you determine whether the board should adopt any new materials policy.
Okay, Larry, we all got the letter.
Okay, I'm just putting that out there. This whole
I'm
thing's
not
a
gonna
moot
read
point.
the whole thing, but
This
you
whole
are
thing is a
making
moot point. So I do have some questions for the librarians. One, have any of your award books that you had listed ever been accused of having pornography or illicit materials? That's the first question. Second question. Before January 2021, has anyone ever questioned you about pornography in the library?
No.
Second question. Before January 2021, has any books been banned in the library?
No, not while I worked here.
I have a quick comment then. Can I put it in now? What we are seeing is a social society division, which is not necessarily happening at RSU 56. This is why I asked the librarians the questions that I did. We have been seeing a barrage of parent attacks on educators since January 2021. Why is this date important? That is the month and year the anti-government terrorist organization Moms for Liberty was founded in Florida. For those who are not familiar with Moms of Liberty, here's a snapshot of their partisan political views.
All right, we're not doing political.
Okay,
no, we're not doing political. Sorry.
Okay.
But it's not part of the discussion.
Basically, they attack school boards and ban books. What happened last meeting and continuing tonight is promoting the rhetoric of hate. RSU 56 should be combating that force of negativity by not accepting this attack on our librarians. RSU 56 deserves and already has transparency. Pam has reminded this board and the community that all curriculums and books are in public view. Moreover, students and parents at the last meeting reminded this board that this is not appropriate and should not be accepted. Some of the public comments stated that this policy went through. Several texts would be eliminated from the classroom. It would affect students' current and future. It could have an emotional impact on students. And finally, it would have an economic impact on community, throwing out thousands of books. Some of these comments even alluded to the fact this could be considered book banning. But some on the board would make the conclusion that this is not the case. They do not want censorship of our books. But as was pointed out during public comments, one commenter said, quote, saw on Channel 6 this community being thrown up as book banners. And to remind all tonight that RSU 56 did ban genderqueer, which went from the News Center Maine's article, November 28, 2023, stated that, quote, in August of 2022, RSU 56 in Dixdale became the first and only school district in Maine to remove genderqueer and memoir from its school libraries. We should listen to what the public has to say. Words matter. This attack on educators and curriculum in the name of parents' right do not have legs. It's going nowhere. Parents already have rights in RSU 56. Also, as I stated in my comments on November 28th, case law, along with the ACLU comment, has supported this fact under state statute and the Constitution of the United States. And according to the ACLU, it would ignore the Supreme Court's definition of obscene work, which states,
Quote, the court's prevailing opinion related to Roth test that is considered obscene material must, one, have a dominant theme in the work considered as a whole that appeals to a current interest. Two, be patently offensive because it goes beyond contemporary community standards. And three, be utterly without redeeming social quality and value. And finally, this cannot be emphasized enough. Actions and words have consequences. In 2022, more than 1,300 teachers, education technicians, administrators, and other educators in Maine left their jobs, and more than half of them did so in June and August. The state also reported that 927 educators retired. In both cases, the totals are the most in the past 7 years. NBC News, August 13, 2023, in Maine, more than 2,000 teachers and other educators quit or retired last year, the most in the past 7 years, according to the Maine Public Employee Retirement System. Relatively low pay and a strong labor market and a political infighting that has put teachers at the center of the culture wars on issues like race and genders have also fueled the trends, said teachers, administrators, and researchers. It's the lack of respect that this position seems to have right now, says Tina Berg, who teaches earth and science in Phoenix suburb of Peoria. We're under attack, unfortunately, by different parent groups and different political groups. And then everything kind of builds up on you. We need to be reminded of what the board's obligation to the taxpayers in RS56. Board members should not create an atmosphere that is, to paraphrase, unethical and self-righteous behavior. This is a destructive force that handicaps the effectiveness of the board's work. Quote,
I thought this was for asking questions.
Not only of school boards, but public education at large. Page 10, Why Culture Matters, MSDMA board training sessions, August 2023.
Larry,
I'm
I
just
want your own
one more
words.
paragraph. I shouldn't be stifled when I'm making a comment. The board has many problems to address. Keeping highly qualified and professional educators should not be one of them. That success is already in place. But first and foremost, an agenda with the parents and school boards working together is needed. The board needs to listen to what the public has to say, not creating a setting emboldened with negativity, division, and a hostile education atmosphere for our future generation, but supporting our dedicated educator and their long hours of preparation before and after school in the classroom. With all the parties working together, our students can be successful and productive members of society. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you remember? Okay. All right. Don?
I want to know if any parent has made a complaint about any specific book. Or are we just talking books in general?
You answer that one.
We currently do not have any complaints on file.
That's what I'm trying to figure out, why we're spending so much time. We have a policy. The policy worked. I don't know why we're arguing over something that we already have that works. We're not here to take books out of all the books out of the library.
Okay. I'm just going to make one comment because we've heard this from board members. We parents have told us we have policies, multiple policies, curriculum policies. If they don't agree with the curriculum, they can get an alternative. There's a complaint process. If a complaint comes to a board member, who is to resolve that? Is it something that's happening in the school? Me as a board member, I don't resolve that. I call the administrator, Pam, and say, listen, I've had this call. I do recommend the parent or a community mentor, please call your administrator. We have the policy 3-party complaint. If there's an issue with a teacher, you start there, you work your way up. So that doesn't seem to happen. I mean, there's general things like we're a little worried about the way we go, you know, like education or curriculum. That's what we are supposed to be working on. So I agree with Dawn that is there a complaint? And I feel like Jason got the call. There was, wow, that shouldn't be there. they looked and said, oh, no. I mean, because you could be surprised how, because I was a book reader and I snookered books everywhere, and she didn't buy that book. So obviously we're getting donations or they're here already. So I just don't know. All right, that was my comment, Brad.
Work backwards here. If the book that Tina mentioned appeared in the library and someone clandestinely put it there, sure, I could get that. But we could also argue that if somebody donated a stack of Hustler magazines, somebody probably ought to vet that, right? Like,
Yeah, there's I didn't read it out because it doesn't happen super often, but there is a specific policy for donations and we follow the criteria.
But you guys would look at them, right? You would,
yeah,
you would
absolutely.
Say,
we wouldn't just put it in.
And that's why I think it's absurd to say, well, we got it donated and we don't know how it got there. It probably got there and somebody saw it and didn't spend any time with it. And I don't think it's, I got to be clear. My argument isn't, I don't think that our administrators and our teachers, our library, anybody is in a clandestine way trying to ideologically twist up these kids. I just don't think that's a thing. Occasionally, is there someone? Sure, but it happens on all sides of an issue. It's always going to be somebody that's going to say something. I think to argue that, well, there's rules and laws in place and policies. Well, first of all, most parents aren't involved, so they don't know what the dang policies are. And they got to learn about them. And they, with genderqueer, man, they sure learned about it, right? They learned as the policy, and if you push it, it works. And lots of people showed up. And I remember 2 people online showed up and nobody in this room spoke out to keep that book here. This room was full. And so that they showed up. I think they claim that, well, we already have a rule. Well, then that's crazy. We got rules. There's no truancy. Kids don't misbehave. They don't bring drugs to school. They don't bring weapons because we have a rule. Now, as far as a board member who was elected for a reason, I was elected for a reason. I wasn't even running for the school board, and I got elected because the people in the town of Carthage, not all, but the folks in that room felt like I was going to go and represent their desires. So if a board member brings up a concern because the people who put her in place said, I got a problem with this, and yes, they haven't complained and they haven't put in a specific complaint about a book, I think the board member ought to be heard. And I think what there's a huge misunderstanding here that this isn't some, here's my policy, I don't want to change it, and this is how it's going to be, ban the Bible, ban all these books, to hell with it. And I don't think that is what's being said. And I don't think you guys think that's what we're saying. Pointing out the absurdity of how broad the statement is, that makes sense. You could look at that and go, yeah, well, why don't we just ban everything? But I think it's important, and I'll leave it at this. So we're not talking about banning books. A ban on a book, like in Fahrenheit 454, right? That is, you're going to go to jail. You're going to be punished. The government is going to punish you. To decide to have a policy that more accurately reflects what the community is saying about their desires, about the content of the material in the school, is book banning. It's not correct. It's the equivalent of saying, we don't let people run around naked in here. We're tired of that. That's got to stop. So board members brought that up, and I think we should listen. Nobody's banning books. We're saying books with this specific material, and yes, we need to get more clear about that, doesn't belong in the school because this community is in fact saying it. And it's not a minority that's saying it. In fact, look around. I don't even think this board is the minority that's saying these things. So I think we should give respect to the board member that brought up this policy. We should spend time to try to refine it. And if in the end it fails because competent adults all involved are saying it's crazy, it doesn't make sense, or we need to tweak it, we should do that. And the community, I would hope they would understand that everybody on this board, whether you agree with them or not, I 100% believe are here for the right reasons. They're not here to make everything bad and miserable all the time. And we're going to disagree. And until we have conversations, detailed, meaningful conversations, we're going to get nowhere. So anyway, thank you.
To Kathleen and Liz.
So I don't want to be misunderstood. I don't think the board is slamming teachers or librarians. As far as I can see, they're very dedicated individuals that want the best for the kids in the RSU. However, there's a concern in the community. At one time, we could trust that when our kids went to school, they would not be confronted with overt violence or in the reading material or explicit sexuality. We have a dress code that says we can't do vulgar and obscene. We have an internet policy that guards against that. Why are books any different? I ask you, why are books any different? And I agree that the policy as written, which I proposed, is vague, and I assure you, I'm not looking to take the classics out or artwork or the Bible. And I thought it would go to the policy committee and we would fine tune it. But I do think the community standards need to be respected. And the review committee that reviewed genderqueer thought it was all right. And the board and the community disagreed. And I don't know how many books there are in that representation, but I don't think parents have time to follow up with every book their kid is reading. So I think this needs to be a safe place. And if we're talking about dress, we need to talk about what's going on, what they're ingesting in their heads. And we can't control the media. So they make a big to-do about banned books. There's a wider world out there. Books are being printed and are readily available. If their parents want them to have sexually explicit materials, it's all over. So I don't think taxpayers need to pay for this stuff in schools.
Liz?
Yeah, I had brought up before about kind of a rating system, and that got poo-pooed, I know. But I do know that Herman Superintendent Brian Welch this fall started a new policy at their school in Herman, and it gave the parents, which I'm all for, the right to say what they wanted their child or student to have access in that particular school, because it was a hot topic up there. Everybody knows that. So what they have is it goes home with a kid at the beginning of the school year, along with all those other papers that you have to fill out, like computer access and lunches and whatever, I don't know, 4 or 5 that go home and have to be signed and come back. Well, he decided that he would send home a, I don't know, paper that gave 3 options to the parents, who in my estimation is the final say of what their kid should be reading. And those were, number 1, full access to the library. Number 2, no access to the library. Number 3, restricted access for adult content. Now, I know we have books that are 18 plus. I consider that adult content. And there's no access to the library until that form comes back. And talking about parents not being aware, because they're busy. They have busy lives. They work. You know, they're feeding their family. They don't have time for all this. So some people aren't aware of it. So anyways, that has to come back with a signature of their choice for their kid. So that's when I say First Amendment rights, I'm talking about the parent who has the right, my child, to say what I want them to be exposed to in the public school. So on the other point that I wanted to make, and I'm not going to talk about it a lot, I read 9 books this summer that are here in the high school library. I didn't take them out from here. I went to a public library and she does not have them at the library. So I ordered them all from other places like Bowdoin College or Thomas College or wherever it came from. There were a number of places these 9 books came from. And they are in our library. And I was upset by some, not so upset by others. The reason why I was upset by a few was the material in it was involving sexual battery, sexual activity, sexual nudity, profanity, drug use, and it was considered 18 plus. There were others that I read that were not quite so bad. And I haven't challenged them because I was hoping we could come up with some kind of a system, like I said, that this superintendent Welch did, that would allow the parent to make that decision for us so that we don't have to come across as trying to stop our children from reading books. That's not the intent. I love books. I read books. I get them from a great librarian up here who is now, she is the employee of the week at Dixfield.
Year.
And she's got the award today. But anyway, she didn't have any of these books when I went down there to get them in the public library. They had to be ordered from across the state of Maine. So anyways, I'm not trying to ban books. I'm trying to help parents do the best for their children. We protect them physically here in this building. And I think we need to protect them emotionally and morally. And I think we have standards. We have community standards. I guess that's the end of my story.
Can I say, sorry.
I got Dawn first, then.
Sure.
The parent spoke back when we removed genderqueer. You knew how many parents are here. That, to me, is what our policy should stay at. If you've got that many parents, as ugly as these people were here, you got to pay attention to them. Now, if you've got one person complaining, I don't know if everybody has a little different version of what pornography is. But I do remember reading that a judge said, you can't explain what pornography is to you, but you'll know it when you read it. So everybody's a little different.
Okay, Tina.
I think a rating system's not a bad idea. That might be something we want to consider at some point. But going back to the library access online, the middle school and library and elementary library online is available, but I'm still getting a 404 error currently for the high school library.
We have folks here who are pulling it up as we speak and it's working. I'm not sure if maybe bring your computer in and check if something's going wrong with yours.
I am currently on the internet and pulling up the library and there is no library.
Yeah, it's
404.
Here we had 3 people who are getting the website, so I'm not sure what's going wrong with that. They are holding their laptops up.
I'm also holding mine and refreshing. It's the URL was not found on the server. And if I'm going to the Durigo school website and I pull up the menu and then underneath there's a library, I tap library and I'm getting an error.
Yeah, so we got a lot of people here, or really everyone who's checked here, it's worked. So
I just emailed her the direct link that I got from the website.
Okay, Mr. Long has emailed you a direct link to the website so that you can access it for now while we troubleshoot what's going on with you.
Okay.
Can I make a motion, Barb?
I'm there. An action.
Oh, okay. So,
but we can do a consensus.
Okay.
Natalie. All right.
If we don't need a motion, then I would say, unless there's, other voices that need to be heard, I'd say we move the topic and we place this in the hands of the policy committee to have a much more robust discussion and maybe recommendations, because I think we could be here all night. And
I do agree on that.
Anything
that. New, Larry? Anything new in your comment?
One more time.
Was there anything new? Because
I just want to make a couple comments here that I just been listening to John Dennison notes here. I said at the last meeting that I still think this is an end run for book banning, and that's the only thing left. Everybody's saying, oh, we don't want to ban books, but who's going to pay and how are all these books going to be in the library? Who's going to sit down with every single book in that library that describes, represents, or actual simulated sexual acts or sexual activity, actual stimulating, or who's going to come down and do that? Who's going to pay for that? Also, as somebody pointed out last time, are we willing to throw out tens of thousands of dollars of books so we can pacify one or two people? I don't think so. So it's a moot point. If the parents want to control it, they have the right. If a kid wants to come and student wants to get a book out of there, I don't think it's up to the librarians to go, well, oh, that's pornography. You can't read that. You want to take it out, take it home and let your parents look at it. They don't let you do it, bring it back. Simple process. And if there was something to be said about the book, file a grievance.
All right. So I think we've exhausted it. Who? Oh, thank you. Sorry.
I've been awfully quiet here because I'm the little mouse in the elementary school. And it seems like everything's directed at the middle school and high school. And I totally, as a parent myself, and an older educator, I won't tell you my age, but I've been in the education business for 30 plus years. I was a fourth grade teacher, a math teacher. I left and got my master's in library science. I worked at a high school, middle school, and then I was blessed to become an elementary librarian, which there aren't teacher contracts for that level. So I just feel so lucky and I love it here. I would hate to think that, you know, the gender queer, I hope judgment isn't being like, I understand the scare that gave parents of how did that book end up in our library? And Brad had a very honest question and he deserved to ask that question. And accidents do happen. And it may not have been an accident. It may have been, it was COVID. That was the, it had a lot of good reviews. It had not been analyzed to the point that it is now because it was fresh back then. And the community spoke, they got what they wanted, and that process did work. I think now there's a fear that is going to create, you know, there's more in there. In the elementary school, I pride myself on the books that I choose for the kids. I like diversity. I try to keep it at their level. I look at a book. I know Charlie and I have looked at books together when there's like, I wonder, you know, well, how would you teach this? How would you use this? And answering Liz, I do have parents that do say, I don't really want my child to have these fantasy books. And so I absolutely honor that. And I love it when a parent does that because then there's no question, you know, then I don't put a book that the parents disagree with in a child's hands. And I respect that. And I wish more parents did that. And maybe it's not tweaking the policy as the first attempt, but educating parents on what they can do and how we can change it instead of immediately going to taking everything out. And I know that that's not what's meant by the, you know, I've heard all of you and I totally agree. I can't disagree with a lot of what you're saying because it is scary as a parent to know that they're getting this stuff. And not only do we have it on the internet, but now we have it in books, and now we have it on the internet. It is a scary world for parents at this time. It is hard not to take it personally because I feel like I do a good job picking the right book. And as Larry said, there are over 13,000 books in the elementary school. I have been weeding books for years since I've been here. And even though I think I got it, then I find that Pride and Prejudice on the shelf that certainly shouldn't be in the elementary school. I am professional enough to know that that book needs to come off, and I do that, and we both do that. I think it's time we work together instead of split hairs, and maybe help parents navigate this dusty, murky waters together instead of separated.
Can I add to that?
Who's talking?
Oh, Tina, sorry.
Oh, hi, Tina. Sorry.
That's okay. It's hard to raise my hand. So I agree with her. I think that it's a great idea. Maybe we could implement some plan through the policy committee where parents have that choice and we're putting that back into their hands. I think that's a great idea. I think what has changed since January 2021 is that parents are more aware of what their kids are getting access to. And I don't think it's a minority. I think a lot of parents want to know, and they hadn't been paying attention up until these points. And I think, bringing it out into the public, people are realizing, oh, okay, well, maybe this is not a good idea for my child. I didn't think about this because it wasn't in school when I was in school. People don't think about it that way. The books that are in the libraries now, obviously they're newer topics and not something that I would have thought would have been in the library at all. So I was surprised. So now I'm a lot more aware, and I think a lot of parents are a lot more aware. And I don't think that most of the parents are the minority. Their parents are the priority. And I think that's important that we definitely keep that in mind and perhaps put that decision into the parents' hands so they can decide what is best for their children.
Yeah, can I just add to that really quick? The parents do already have that authority, and we do honor that. I have students whose parents have requested they not check out certain kinds of materials, and I honor that. And like Cindy, I like when parents do that because then it's clear. I don't have a question in my mind of what this kid is, it's not up to me what is appropriate.
So how are they reaching out to let them know that though? Like, is there a
form? To curate a selection that is age appropriate and grade level appropriate? It is up to the parent to have regular discussions with their child about what they're reading and make clear what is appropriate for their child, what their choice is, and we honor that.
So what's
we're going to move on. Is it anything?
I was just wondering because she said that the parents let her know, but how are they letting her know? Like, are they emailing? Is there a form?
They contact through administration. That's the way to
and
make
Jason's
change.
pointing at himself.
Yeah.
Call me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So briefly, there's a school of thought that says trust the experts, but on the American Library Association website, they have 10 most challenged books, and Gender Queer is the first. And besides all 10, they have a note, claim to be sexually explicit. Claimed? I think community standards needs to be in the mix.
Okay, we're moving on unless somebody who didn't talk. Oh, you're good. All right. Thank you for coming. And thank you. You were very articulate.
Barb, what's the final conclusion here?
Excuse me?
What's the final conclusion here?
Well, that was the presentation.
Okay.
All right. Since we didn't put it as an agenda, which will be, I could, well, we said we would wait, so it will have to be the next meeting just to get the consensus of, or we can do it right now.
The prior minutes say it will go back to the policy committee.
Yeah, I did.
Well, I did it.
Yes.
Yeah. So I make a motion, we put it back to the policy.
Well, we
committee
don't
and
have a
discuss it.
motion. It can go back to the policy, but I also want to know we got a policy that every other policy in that book is lawyer reviewed. They're not come out of the air. So I want to, because someone says, well, where did he come from? And so if we're coming to policy, we have a good discussion, but, an open discussion and not just different points of view. Because, I know it's okay. And I don't know if anybody, I'd have to check if it's available for the next board meeting to have that.
I haven't spoken to this point, can I?
Yeah. Yes, you
Okay.
can.
So I think my recommendation, is it on? Okay. So I think my recommendation would be hearing all of the dialogue, and I think actually towards the end of the conversation, we started to kind of, in my view, have probably the most productive conversation that we've had, is we've had all sorts of different viewpoints and things. But, I certainly, as a parent, it's important to me to see, what's going on. I have 2 avid readers that I know visit the 2 librarians that are here very often. And thank you guys for your presentation, and thank you guys for all that you do. So I guess my thought would be that we bring this to policy, and the folks that are involved in this. I mean, I think it's great if the librarians are available to attend that. Other folks, other board members, if you want to be involved in the conversation, do that, administrators. But I feel like that's probably the most constructive place to have more dialogue, because I don't think we're at a point that we have anything to vote on right here, right?
No. And part of the policy committee, because Brian makes up my my group, it does include administrators, all the administrators, because that's how they know what's going on and if they need to attend or be involved. All right.
Yeah, just one quick thing.
Yes.
I would suggest that at the policy meeting, we don't discuss the entire policy on library books and everything. We should discuss that policy of where the sexual depicts sexual activity in a book. That's the policy. That's the part of the policy. We shouldn't discuss the entire policy. It's just that one cherry pick thing that everybody's taking issue with.
So
that would be the one that I think we would talk about.
I think we leave that at the discretion of
Yeah,
the
we have
policy
to have
chair and
discussion.
have that discussion, because I
Because
don't
we
know if
have a sample, we have our MSMA, we have our current.
And the thing is, you have existing policies too. that
And
may
we pretty
be
much
to-
have gotten the protocol. So, all right, moving on.
So I just wanted to provide the board with an overview of a grant that is called the Workforce Opportunities in Rural Communities. It's WORC. The applicant of the grant was Northern Forest Center. It's facilitated through Maine West, and we are one of the sub-recipients of this grant. I'll tell you the rest of them. Community Concepts is a sub-recipient because they'll be networking to build a network of businesses in our communities. Rural Aspirations is also a sub-recipient because they are going to provide professional development around extended learning opportunities. And then the Western Maine school districts are also named the high schools. So Telstar, Oxford Hills, Buckfield, Mountain Valley, and Darigo. The way they wrote this grant is to provide opportunities for all 5 of the high schools in Western Maine to have an extended learning opportunity coordinator. So they would be paying out of the grant for the first 3 years, in part at least. So for Darigo High School, they have set aside $188,400 over 3 years. Obviously, this first year is half over, so we wouldn't use the amount they established for year 1, so we could carry that into year 2 and 3. I also talked to them about, like, if we sign on to this grant, which as your superintendent and as your principal, I would recommend we do, because it gives our students opportunities to earn credits in workforce areas out in our communities. That if we could not come up with the additional portion of it, 1, can we carry it forward to the next year? Yes. 2, if we still can't afford our portion, can we have a part-time person? Yes. And 3, if we couldn't do that, could we work with Telstar perhaps, or another one that's pretty small that we might be able to share somebody and pool our money together? So I would put this in as a way to get our students involved in extended learning opportunities right now without any money inputted from RSU56, because I think it's well worth us trying this avenue for many of our kids. Along with that, there'd be $4,000 a year to cover costs. So if, say, example, we have to get a student to a place of a business that we cover gas to get there, or cost of sending a van there. If they need shoes, or they need work shoes, Steel Toed would be able to do that for them. So we just have opportunities to provide some additional support for students. The ELO coordinator would be hired by us, paid for through them, but they would have to go to professional development around what it is to be an extended learning opportunity coordinator. They would collect certain information so that we could see if this was being beneficial to our students along the way. We would have to provide quarterly reports, which we would do. Already talked to Mary about that, how that would look. And I just think it's a good opportunity for Derigo High School students and RSU56, and I wanted you to know about it and just find out if there was any general concerns or opposition to us being part of this. It's a $1.2 million grant for Western Maine. Again, through Maine West will be the ones facilitating it.
Go ahead, Brad.
What does my face say something? I'm like hugging the microphone. Can I make a motion? Make a motion that we approve the grant.
So it's not an action item. I didn't put it out. You can just do it under general consensus if people are comfortable with it. Just
I think it's a big deal. I've got 3 businesses where I'm trying to hire, and if we're not getting our kids ready, like through Region 9, to see what the opportunities are that also may extend beyond college, like the folks that may not want to go. I'm all for this. I think it's great.
My only question is, so they go to work? Is it a job? Are they working, or is it they're doing, like, what do we used to call it?
So it's different.
It's different shadowing.
It's different than work release, because our seniors do work release. So this is more about having mentors and having opportunities to be out in businesses, to learn those skills that you need to be in a business. They would obviously be doing, resumes and all of that sort of stuff as well. But they would be working, but it would be under like an apprenticeship as opposed to just work release as a senior.
Okay. Now, I always forget the acronyms. JMG, didn't they do that too?
So JMG has done extended learning opportunities and small scale. Okay. It's harder we would like to have it at a larger scale so more of our students would have the opportunity, which this would allow us to do.
Okay. And I did read this in the newspaper before yes. Oh, we got a grant. Oh, I didn't know we did it. That's how I found
So we're a sub-recipient. So I want to be clear that we are, I have not signed the paperwork to send back to her yet to say we're definitely in. I will be signing that tomorrow if this goes through under general consensus, because I do think it's a great opportunity for Derigo High School.
Carl.
You explain the applicant. What is the Northern Forest Center?
So I should have paid more attention at my meeting last week because they described this better. So it's a nonprofit organization that works in all of Western Maine and basically they work on forest projects, and I will get more information if you'd like, but I don't have it.
No, I was just wondering if this was geared toward the logging forestry industry.
It is not. I mean, students could certainly look that way if they want to, but the part of the community concepts connecting with businesses is that it would be any business. So whatever the students were interested in, whether it was
picking potatoes,
pharmacy, whatever.
Sure. But I meant you haven't you do a lot of work. You do everything.
So to be clear, it is not just forestry oriented.
Well, that's any other questions on it? We've given a thumbs up. Everybody consensus. Thank you. Okay, Nick. Well, you're on the list. Tina, are you still there?
I am here. Yeah, I'm just I have
didn't
back.
ask you, I forgot. Was that a consensus?
Oh,
do you-
yes. Yes,
All right.
sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, we're good.
Don't turn around. Thank you. All right.
Good evening, board members. So I am coming here today requesting for a memorandum of agreement to the current teacher contract to include the assistant Nordic ski assistant coach stipend. So currently it is not in the contract that we have written. We have the number of participants involved in Nordic ski, so we're hovering around 16 on a daily basis. And it would match what we have for the high school because the high school already has a Nordic ski assistant coach listed in the contract. So this would just allow us the opportunity to hire one if the numbers are deeming it so. And with the massive amount of property that you would have Nordic skiers on, it is definitely beneficial to have two adults looking at or monitoring their practices and events for them.
Okay, quick clarification.
Yes.
It's not the MOA. This has never been a position we had. So any new position the board has to approve. So clarity, how many skiers do you have right now?
Around 16.
16.
Yep.
And what was last year's?
Last year was on, I would say, pretty consistently between 9 and 11.
Okay. All right.
And just for my clarity, so a memorandum of agreement.
That is after negotiation when you have a job. When you
Gotcha.
have it. If there's not a position, just because it's not in the contract, it may have been, or it's been thing, but if you've never had it, the board creates positions, approves.
Gotcha. My understanding was that it was a memorandum of the teacher contract, which is why there was an
If
agreement.
the position is approved.
Got it. Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Larry?
So that's be 1 year?
So the memorandum, if approved, correct me if I'm wrong, would go into the teacher contract, which is through, no?
No, it
Okay.
don't go into the teacher's contract until this negotiation comes up. That just has it be there. And then if it's still there, if it's needed, then it will go into the list.
Okay.
So there's a wage already in place then? There's a contractual wage already in place?
Well, that's what the MOA will be with
Yes.
figuring out the wage amount.
And it would be consistent with what we already have listed as assistant JV coaches within the contract, which is negotiated with the association. Thank you.
So to clarify, what we're voting on tonight would be yay or nay to approve the creation of this position. And it would then go to negotiations
whenever
to
to get the MOA.
We're meeting fairly regularly at the moment still, to set out the MOA and then would negotiate and would go to the association to agree on a salary for that position. But just adding that position into the contract doesn't mean that you have to hire it for every year.
No.
Just like we have JV coaches that are in there that if you don't have the numbers to support it, you don't have the team.
Yes. Thank you, Natalie.
Go ahead, Brad.
I make a motion, we add the position.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Comments or question? Seeing none, roll call.
Dawn,
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Kathleen.
Yes.
Joy. Natalie.
Yes.
Deanna,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now you can go back. I think they're done.
What's the current score?
Ooh.
Nice.
Oh, you guys, okay, night. All right, moving on. Second reading of policy JICIA, student dress. Yes, please. Oh, yeah.
I did it last time too. I'm sorry.
Because that's a different policy, that one. All right. Wasn't there a change you had to make? Oh, you've got it all as fully. All right. Yes. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second? Comments or questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you clarify what we just made a motion for, please?
It's the second reading of the policy.
So
that we
Just
have-
as it is. It's not, we're not.
Yes,
saying-
as is.
So the only change from last time was the wording change.
That's what I thought. I
Yes.
was like, am I missing?
Yeah, no, we do 2 readings. Any other comments? Go ahead.
Well, I'm opposed to this policy, and I think if we are striving for excellence in education, it doesn't work to be dressed for the beach or whatever. But I realize I'm in the minority and the board rules.
Well, that's why it's a whole board, but you can always state your opinion. We do not agree. We agree to disagree on things and move forward. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call?
Dawn,
Yes.
Larry, Kathleen,
No.
Joy, Natalie,
Yes.
Deanna,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I turned the page. Region 9 update.
They have not met since the last time.
Okie dokie. Strategic plan.
So just a reminder that we have our community forum this Saturday from 9 to 11 here at Derigo High School in this room. We'll continue to gather community input via the survey, which can be found on our website, www.rsu56.org. We have our next strategic planning committee meeting next Monday, December 18th at 5:30 in the library. And we will be reviewing the survey and information gathered at the community forum. So if you're out there, haven't done the survey, please do it before Monday, or please come Saturday. Brian's going to have a number station set up, so if people in the community do not have access, they can come here to do the survey, plus we'll gather some information in alternate ways. Shall I go right to the next one?
Yep.
So I wanted to give you an update on the school resource officer. We've talked about it a few times this year already. I will be meeting with Chris Wainwright again this Friday to do some finalization of the contract. The goal is to have the contract finalized on December 19th and the hiring process completed in January. The hope is to have the SRO in place by the end of January. Again, I just want to remind you that this is grant funded. This was a grant that I submitted, and it's $250,000 over 3 years. Obviously, we're not going to need the full $88,333 from first year, so that will carry into the second and third years of this. So there will be no local funds supporting the SRO for these 3-year grant period. And I don't know, I think Brad might have asked last time if that should also be general consensus of like, are we good to go with this as well?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I mean, we're talking about bringing, not a stranger, but I mean, someone else into the school, and I see a need for it. So I think whether it's a motion or a general consensus, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know after reading the articles, it isn't what happened. We will make sure this person is certified to do what they're supposed to do. So general consensus. Thumbs, Deanna, and I'm having a brain.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that both
My-
of you?
Up.
Okay. All right, moving on.
So I just want to, and on my report, I want to remind you that next Thursday, December 21st, is an early release day in RSU56. Student dismissal will begin at 11:30. It's the last day before the December break, and we will return to school. Did somebody say woo?
Yeah, they did say Charlie.
Sorry, Charlie. We will return to school on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. And as Ms. Conley makes her way to the podium for her report, I will just report out new hires. We do have James Clucci coming on as our bus aide, and Caitlin Woods as our Derigo High School cheering coach, and Tom Kelly as the Derigo High School girls JV basketball coach. The Tom Kelly who's here is a custodian. We also have 2 resignations that I'm sad to report. Ashley Calden is our current Darago High School school secretary. She is resigning at the end of December. And Katie Morris, who is a Darago Elementary School special ed tech, who's done a fabulous job for us, is going back to college to finish up her degree starting in January. So we are encouraging her to think about RSU56 when she finishes that. But I do have those two resignations, and then I will turn it over to.
Go ahead, Liz. You got a question, quick.
Question. I didn't hear you, I guess. When is Ashley done?
So Ashley will work right up until the December break, and then she will be done.
Okay, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Good evening. My presentation started with letting you know that the special ed department here in RSU 56 is fully staffed, except for it won't be soon. Although I will share with you that we've already had an interested candidate. So I'm pretty hopeful that it will not be empty long. And I talk about that because if you're watching the news or hearing or reading the papers, you're seeing that many schools around our state are really understaffed. And special education in particular has been pretty hit with that. So I just feel really lucky that we have really dedicated and amazing staff members, all staff members here, but certainly I'm here representing our special education department. So we've got a great team that's doing wonderful work with our students between our ed techs and our teachers. I thought tonight I would share a little bit of data with you. Right now, as it stands, we have 126 of our students with active IEPs in the district. That's out of 756 students. So getting close to 17% of our student population is receiving special education services here in our district. That compares, we don't have the 2023 numbers, but statewide, the percentage is about 19.49%. So we're a little under statewide. Nationally, we're a little above. It's around 15%. And the state of Maine is one of the states in the nation that tends to be a little more above when it comes to the percentage of students identified. Let's see. So the Individual Disabilities Act, IDEA, I thought it might be good to kind of list out what some of the acronyms are that we use in special education, is a law that guides special education, and it requires that all students who are receiving special education services receive those services in the least restrictive environment possible. So what that means is that they're around their same age peers who are not identified as much as they possibly can be. Of course, we take into factors their needs, their individual needs, but also making sure that they're making adequate progress regardless of what setting they're in. But it is a law that we are always looking to have them in the least restrictive environment that they can perform the best in. In our district, we have 52% of our students are with their same age peers, their same age non-disabled peers, 52% of the time. So that is excellent. More than half of our students are. 80% more of the time they are in their general education settings. We've got 34% that are in their 79 to 40% of the time they're with same age peers. And then we have 13% that are 40% or less. But I do want to note that that 13% does include our students that are in special purpose private schools or over at WFRP. So that does include our students that have had to be placed out of district due to the extent of their needs. So some ways that from a state level, they've actually changed the name of the Department of Special Services to the Department of Special Services and Inclusive Education. So it's really speaking to where that law focuses. All students, and the premise of inclusive education is all students learn differently. We all learn differently, just as all students do. Ways that I, in leading our district, in regards to inclusion are things, we've got some special education teachers that are pushing into classrooms and doing co-teaching with our general education teachers. We have special education teachers and ed techs that are pushing into general ed classrooms and doing some teaching and support. Certainly supporting the transition of students that are in out-of-district placements, returning to our district when they're able. That's always a team decision, but we talk about that every time we meet to try to get them back into their home schools. We do have some students that are traveling great distances, and that's happening because that's what their needs require. But whenever things start to shift and change and they gain skills, we want to bring them back here to RSU56 so they can be in their home school. We look at data to ensure that the specially designed instruction is provided at the right level in the right environment. There's professional development happening, ongoing conversations about universal design for learning and how we can tailor our instruction to meet individual learning styles. And then changing our language to not talk about special education as a program. It's not a program, it's a service that we provide our students. So they're not in a program for that service. They receive that service as a part of their education. Currently, we have 11 students enrolled in 2 different out-of-district placements. I just named them for you. Margaret Murphy in Auburn, and they've got a couple of locations. We have students in a couple of locations there. And then the Western Foothills Regional Program. We do have a student that transitioned back very successfully last year from WFRP and is doing wonderful in our middle school. We also have a student in the process of transitioning back here to our high school from Margaret Murphy, which is really exciting. I will say to you, prior to coming to this district, I was an assistant director for several years, never saw students transition back from out-of-district placements. So I am thrilled at the idea that I'm standing here today talking to you about 3. We have one that has, one on his way. Hopefully by this spring that will be finalized. He's coming here 2 days a week at this point and joined a school dance. And so it's really exciting. And then we have a 3rd younger student, and we're just beginning sort of talking about what that will look like transitioning back to Dirigo Elementary School. So that's all very exciting. The last note I'll leave you on is just to update you in terms of our main care reimbursement from last year. Takes a while to get those numbers in. So we do bill main care for psychological services, occupational therapy services, and physical therapy services. And the total reimbursed from last year was $17,858. That's all I have for tonight.
Go ahead, Brad.
It's always nice to hear when somebody's transitioning back.
Yeah.
It's really great. Reimbursement from main care. Seems like a small number at 17,000. I'm assuming the monies we get going towards the budget to pay for the expense. Is that reimbursement fair? And I'm just asking in your best judgment. Is that a fair reimbursement?
It varies. So last year, when I reported out, we were more around the 25,000. So it varies on the number of sessions we have with students. I don't know if I can speak to whether I think main care reimbursement is right at the level it needs to be, but it does help offset the cost of those providers. We don't have a lot of students receiving physical therapy services in our district, so we can't bill for that a lot. So there is a time requirement with main care billing. Each time a provider sees a student, they have to go in and make an electronic note about that then we send to main care, and we have a system with our IEP system that we do our billing through.
Pam, would you say, maybe you're gonna find this number, it's not like hype, but is that reimbursement diminished over the years? I mean, I know where this is going, but yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Say by the bell.
Yes, from the, maybe I should just say yes. From the time I started knowing about main care to now, yes, it has gone down, but it also, there was a period of time that school districts were getting fairly large main care reimbursements and then ended up having to pay things back. So it's gotten really tight and you have to be really particular about what you submit. And we are very careful here to make sure that what we get is what we're going to be able to keep.
It's nice to have these things on the record as main care continues to claim that they're adequately reimbursing, I mean, across the board, medical, everything. So thank you very much. No, they're not.
No, and
Not by any means.
oh, it was awful. When it was,
They'll come after the money. No question.
No, because number one, they made it so complicated. Number two, we used to put it in as income and
it's reimbursement.
Was it you that came? When Pam first came in, we were severely deficit. You can't. So Mary, there is no main care put in. I don't even know if we'd still do zero. We might do 5,000. We can't count on it.
We do zero.
We do zero because if we get anything, we're like, okay.
This is really a reimbursement as opposed to revenue.
Yeah.
You're not making money on this.
No, it's reimbursed, but we used to put, well, we get this much. Well, then we can't rely on it. It's awful there. They made it hard.
Well, there are a lot of regulations around it and how things are done. And then they go back and audit you. And then they say, oh, owe us all this. Yeah.
Any other questions for Heidi? Thank you very much. And I did see it when somebody comes back. That is exciting, especially for Margaret Murphy. That's a big step.
I'm really excited.
Thank you. You can go home now. Committee reports.
Game night, practice.
Okay.
Our student will return. She still wants to be here.
Policy, I will check to make sure nothing is scheduled that 1st January for other committees. Finance?
Still waiting on Mary, and I think we're tentatively scheduled for a meeting in January.
Okay. Curriculum?
Jason just confirmed with me January 23rd.
Okay.
We're meeting from about 5 to 6:15, and it is to discuss. My understanding is that some teachers have some material they're evaluating and include that. So we will report back next year.
Oh, that was a good one. Buildings and grounds?
We haven't met. We're scheduled to meet January 12th.
Negotiations, we're still meeting. Personnel?
So I think last week we had talked about moving our meeting maybe to the 23rd as well. Do we have a conflict? Because we can push personnel if we need to. It's not time critical.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we have one. So could we do, what are we on to? February 13 before the board meeting?
Okay.
Or we could do a different Tuesday afternoon or something, whatever works.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll work that.
Okay.
All right. Ad hoc, they met today. You want to speak? Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, we met tonight and there was a lot of discussion around Diversity Week, Diversity Day. Diversity Day in the high school, they have a theme that they're building empathy and understanding biases, and they're going to have 4 sessions, 15 per session. And I'm going to have Pam review the people that are going to come because I couldn't write that fast if you want to.
The main head.
If the board would like me to, I can pull it up and read down through the list, or I can email you the list of people that are coming.
Email the list.
Email's fine.
Yeah, because I know the main speaker is from Reboot, correct?
Yeah.
So the keynote speaker in the morning is from Operation Reboot. And then we'll have 4 sessions throughout the day that kids will be able to pick which ones they go to. So there will be lots of opportunities for them to choose different topics. And then the end of the day keynote is from the Maine Holocaust and Human Rights Center.
In the middle school, their theme is accepting responsibility and hate speech, and they're going to have group sessions. And at the end, I think I'd like to show it for them. They're going to have sample of food of the world. So.
Region
the-
9.
the elementaries, they're setting aside time to clarify what is going on about their civil rights violations. And, we also discussed, library presentations, and I think that's about it that we did on that one right there. So the basic discussion about diversity, and we did cover a little bit of what a major infraction of their civil rights is. So there was some discussion about that, but mostly it was about the diversity weekday and getting the students involved.
Thank you, Larry. All right, board member comments.
Yes,
Go ahead.
twofold. As Larry just said, at the elementary school, we're talking about what an infraction of their civil rights would be.
So that comment is around, tonight we talked about teachers understanding what a civil rights violation might look like at the elementary school.
So this isn't for children.
So that day is not for children. That is more talking about for.
That's why I was confused. I'm like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's another topic we had about violations when they do the.
I have one last thing. I'd like to make a recommendation that the board approve Pam to have access to a key for the thermostat. If that's a thing.
Are you even on? Okay. Strange, because remember that all's supposed to make it be nice.
If I have keys to it, it's gonna be 62.
But it is hot. Liz's face is ready. I feel. All right. Any other board member comments? Seeing none, I'm gonna make a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 6A to discuss the evaluation of the superintendent of schools.
Second.
Everybody out.
Oh, did I get a motion a second? Roll call.
Don,
Yes.
Larry, Kathleen, Joy, Natalie.
Yes.
Deanna,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
I made the
Carl.
motion.
Yes.
Did I get the motion? No, I made the thing. Who made the motion first?
Well, I thought you did, but I'll
All
make
right,
a motion. if
I
it's-
was up here and Dawn did. I knew I heard from Dawn. Second, Natalie. All right. All right. Did you, Tina, hear that? If you disconnect, and Deanna, disconnect from where you are in the meeting and then check your email, you get a new link.
Okay, will do.
And you have them. Sorry, yes, She went to the new, I don't know if, okay. Said, get home. You're in trouble. The mind falls asleep. All right, is both on? We're good? Could I get entertain a motion?
Make a motion to, oh, wait, we need a motion based on our executive session?
Yeah, that we would, extend the 3-year contract out 1 more year.
I make a motion that we extend the superintendent's contract, 3-year contract out 1 more year.
Could I have a second? Second. Comments or questions? Roll call?
Larry,
Yes.
Kathleen, Joy,
Yes.
Natalie. I'm working. Deanna,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
Sorry, Brad.
Yes.
Get my thing just right. Liz,
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
I feel like it's not.
I move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second. All right, all those, all
Larry,
right, Larry, just answer yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Natalie,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Deanna,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Carl.
Good night and
Yes.
thank you.